status, there are any universal moral truths. So when you're criticizing another culture, you're just being arrogant. So like the question that was on the midterm where it said, Hitler was not wrong in carrying out the Holocaust, he was only weak because he lost the war. That's an argument that a cultural relativist, although when they're pushed to it, they don't want to make that argument, but that's sort of a conclusion that they're stuck with. You can't say that Hitler was wrong because Hitler was acting according to his own culture's morality, or at least the morality of the Nazi Party. So we have a different morality than the Nazi Party. So according to us, we can say that it's wrong to us. We can't say that it's universally wrong. And if that's the case, then the question becomes, how are you justified in intervening, or how can a war be legitimate if there are no sort of universal moral truths? So those are the 5 principles that Rachels brings up that sort of provide the backbone for cultural relativism. And he talks about some implications I want to bring up briefly. The first thing to think about is, and I think this is really interesting, to say that if there are no objective moral truths or no universal moral truths, then the notion of moral progress makes no sense. So in the United States, we think that we've made progress morally, and at least we have made some steps morally. You can argue that we've for every step forward we've taken 2 back, but anyway, the idea of civil rights and Martin Luther King, providing civil rights to African Americans. We would like to think that that's progress in our society. We are moving towards a more fuller realization of what our country is founded on, the principle that all people are created equal. And the civil rights movement was going towards that. Same thing with the Suffrage Act, the suffrage movement, giving women the right to vote, women's rights, entry, more equal workplace conditions. So, we like to think of these types of things as progress. We've made progress. But, if it's all dependent just upon whatever your culture is, we haven't improved at all. We've just changed. And it seems fundamentally wrong to think that saying we went from a society where we enslaved people to a society where we treat those same people that were enslaved, we provide them, we at least say that we give, equal rights and things like that, and the treatment of African Americans is still not equal. We all know that, but it's improved, certainly, from where it was. So it seems crazy to say that moving from a society where we enslaved a certain people to a society where we respect those same people, and a person who had descended, from slavery could be the President of the United States or something along those lines. It seems crazy to make that, to say that that's not progress, that that's just a change. And now I understand that President Obama did not descend from slaves because his father was from Africa. But it's possible that an African American could serve as president. Okay, and this is going to be our discussion question for the day. Rachels provides what he thinks is a principle to try to ascertain whether something could be a sort of a universal universal moral principle, something that transcends sort of cultures. And his principle is: does a practice promote or hinder the welfare of those people who are affected by that particular principle? And he thinks that may be a standard for judging ethical behavior. And I'm going to ask you guys a question that I posted on the website, and you guys can respond to that and sort of let me know what you think. The last thing is Rachels does want to point out that cultural relativism has some definite benefits and some virtues. The first one is that if we're of the mindset that morality and values can be culturally caught, which there's no question that there are many values that are just simply culturally instilled, culturally relative. However, that doesn't mean that there is no such thing as a universal moral truth, or that things, nothing is wrong and nothing is right in the bigger picture. But the important thing about having that particular mindset where you realize that things can be culturally relative is it causes you to question your own assumptions. And this is something that I experienced personally when I was traveling in China. I saw the Chinese doing many things that I had never seen and had never thought about. And that led me to question some of my own assumptions about the way that the world works. And having the mindset where you can look at other cultures and say, well, they do things very differently than we do, can provide you with sort of an important springboard to question your own assumptions, because we all bring, we're all a product of our society. We all bring prejudices into our daily lives that have been shaped by our childhood and our lives and our experiences. But the key thing is to remember that you need to have a rational basis for your beliefs. Otherwise, they're just prejudices, something that have been culturally shaped. So Rachel thinks that cultural relativism, the idea of it, can provide some insight into that. The second thing that Rachel brings up that he thinks is very important that cultural relativism can do is it can make us more tolerant. If we understand, and this is a point that Appia made in his piece as well, if we're of the mindset that there are many things that are culturally relative and whether something is right or wrong simply depends on the culture upon which we were born, then we're much more likely to be tolerant of other people's cultures. As Appia said, neo-fundamentalists, or I'm sorry, not neo-fundamentalists, cosmopolitans think that there are universal moral truths, but maybe we haven't discovered them yet. So that sort of encapsulates these 2 points that Rachel's trying to make. Maybe we haven't discovered them yet means, I need to question my own assumptions and determine whether they're justified. And the second thing is I need to be tolerant of other practices that are different from mine because I could be wrong. The products, what I'm doing could just be a product of my environment. So unless you have a rational justification, and sometimes even if you do have a rational justification, if the behavior is not harming another or harming you directly, maybe it's better to tolerate it. And Rachel points out at the end there are some acts that probably should not be tolerated. Genocide, we talk about, things like that. The question of female circumcision that's been taking place, should that be tolerated? These are questions that are up for debate. Anyway, that's the discussion. We're going to have a case study. You guys are going to be reading a case on cultural relativism on Thursday, and then next week we're going to do some discussion, and we're going to have another article by another philosopher, Gilbert Harman, Moral Relativism Defended. He provides a more philosophically sophisticated picture of cultural relativism than Rachel's does. Rachel's just providing an overview. And yeah, we'll talk about that. Hope you guys, hope you have a great week, and I'll see you on the forums.